Yeah, disappointing night. Disappointing that we sent the seniors out that way. Feel like we underperformed and didn't play to the best of our ability. And didn't do enough to impact their quarterback. He had a very, very efficient night, obviously going 30 for 39. Didn't get off the field in timely situations. We didn't convert in timely situations. Anytime that, you go a whole half of football there, at one point in time in the second half, we had, 5 possessions. We had 4 3-and-outs. So we weren't being very efficient offensively. Weren't getting off the field when we needed to. We're impacting their quarterback, slowing their running back down. He had another, 100-yard night with total gain net of 94. But at the end of the day, we didn't make enough timely plays, and we didn't put our kids in a position enough to be successful consistently, and we didn't execute, and the players didn't play to the best of their abilities. So we got to go back to the way that we go about our preparation and the standards that we have within our building each and every single day, how we're going to do things. Starts first and foremost with myself and how I'm leading the staff and where we can grow and get better. We continue to improve so that we're not making the same mistakes that was showed up earlier in the year, so we can have that growth, so we can have that improvement, and we can compete at the highest level when we need to each and every single night, which we did not do. Again, tonight was just disappointing for a special group of seniors that have poured so much into the program. For them to have this be their last memory index, that hurts my heart. It's disappointing for them, and we got to use this pain to fuel us as we go forward, and for us to learn this hard lesson as we continue to move forward and help these young men grow.
Let's open up the questions. Let's start virtually with Hustle Belts and Steve Helwig. Steve, any questions for Coach?
Yes, Coach. With this being your 7th loss of the year, you guys have been somewhat used to getting bowl eligibility in recent years. How much does that sting, just not knowing you don't get that extra game in December?
Yeah, I mean, it hurts, Steve. Obviously, it hurts first and foremost because of the time that you're not going to get spent with a special group of seniors, and that bonus time of just being around a group of guys that you like to coach. But it's going to be a great test for who we are, who these young men are, and our first passion, first and foremost, is helping these young men grow. And so, we have a week where a lot of people on the outside are going to say, hey, you don't have anything to play for, you had your 7th loss, you're not going to get to bowl eligibility, all those things that you just mentioned. But to me, it's bigger than that. We got everything to play for this week, right? It's going to test the character and the resolve of our young men, of our organization, and we'll be able to use this, to propel us as we go forward into the offseason, to see the character of this club, to see the character of this program. And like I said, excited to see how our kids are going to respond.
Early on in that game, it seemed Colin was in a good rhythm, both on the ground and he had a couple long throws. So when he goes out like that, how does that kind of change the entire complexion of the offense?
Yeah, I mean, obviously takes a little bit of the wind out of the sails. He's the trigger man having a good night with everything, but Devin's played some meaningful snaps, obviously, and got to start under his belt in the big-time robbery game. So he comes in, he's got to settle in. Took him a little bit to do that, but yeah, definitely impacted the game, right? When good players go down, all the great X's and O's in the world, like this game's about players, and game day in particular is about players and players making plays. And when you lose one of your best players, that's hard to overcome.
And then just one more thing, a little more about Colin, but we saw the Colin Dante Seamus connection work really well earlier in the year, especially that Ohio game. So what was kind of the frustration throughout this season of not really getting your starting quarterback and your star receiver really on the field together in some of these crucial games?
Yeah, I mean, we got a lot of good players, and that's the beauty of being the 5th year of our program. We should be at a spot where obviously you have your high caliber guys, but there's been some ups and downs, with injuries and different things that are going to pop up, that are going to happen, that everyone around the league is dealing with, and how you respond and handle those events is ultimately going to lead to the outcomes, right? So, you can get as frustrated or whatever other feeling you want to say, but so what, now what? Like, you can't control that, and you got to work through, and the guys got to work with urgency, and the staff has to work with urgency to put everyone in the best position to be successful. And when the opportunity is there, regardless of what the name is on the back of the jersey, there's a lot of good players in that locker room for the Kent State Golden Flashes, and we got to go and make those plays.
Thank you, Coach.
Let's turn it over to the people in the room here. Jack, any questions for Coach?
Yeah, Coach, just defense in the first half I think was really good. In the second half they kind of moved the ball a little better, just what they threw at you. But they made it tough for you guys.
I thought they did a really good job staying on schedule. They weren't very predictable in terms of run or pass. And then again, obviously we didn't impact the quarterback enough. Anytime he's able to sit back there and throw it 39 times and complete 30 of them, like, that's not nearly good enough, right? So when a kid feels comfortable to be able to do that, they got a solid running game with, a very, very talented back. And when they started using their changeup kid, number 28, that's got some real speed, right? I mean, just ultimately, they did a really good job executing, and we did a poor job of impacting, what they were trying to do and affecting what they were trying to do, particularly the quarterback, to have that sort of night and that sort of efficiency. you know, we got to be better. We got to put our kids in a better position to be successful, so that we can impact, you know, him a little bit more, so we can get him off the spots and, you know, cause some more havoc for him.
Obviously, Colin goes down, but just defensively, what they throw at you in the second half to be able to limit your production. You didn't score until the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't anything really major differently right going into it. We knew that was going to be single high, it was going to be a lot of cover 1, a lot of cover 3, and every single week they have different flavors of the week in terms of their pressure. So they were showing a 5-up, mugged up look, and they were wrapping the back of the Mike Backer around. That was one of their pressures, and they were, you know, bringing the Sam off the edges. That was the other flavor of the week, right? So we knew what it was, and the beauty of what they do, you know, they come up and they challenge you and they force you to, you know, be efficient, and you got to operate, and you got to play pitch and catch, right? So when you got, you know, your starter who takes the majority of the reps with the starters throughout the course of the week, and you try and balance the load distribution and everything. There's only so many reps to go along, especially at this point in time in the year, and you build a plan around one guy, right? And he gets the time with those kids, and then you kind of got to pivot, obviously, in the middle of the stream there. And it took us a quarter to settle in, right? You don't get a ton of reps when you're not converting first downs, but then once everyone kind of got settled in, we were able to put a drive together, but it was too little too late.
Talk a little bit about Poe's performance tonight. Obviously, no Cephas. I think he stepped up and had a pretty one of his best games of the season.
Yeah, he really did, right? I mean, again, he's at a spot where he's finally feeling as healthy as he probably has all year long. And then again, we know he's an explosive playmaker. He's done a lot of good for us in the past. He's going to do a lot of good for us in the future. And again, he's one of those guys that, hey, there's obviously Cephas's load that he carries, right? He's down, but that water that's in Cephas's bucket, that's got to go to somewhere else. It's got to be distributed amongst the team. And he obviously carried a lion's share of that water in his bucket. And Poe can carry a lot in his bucket. And, you know, so we found ways to get him the ball so that he can be productive. It was great to see him get in the end zone, you know, because he does so much for the team. And obviously just for him to get that payday and that reward, that was great to see. Thanks, Coach.
Any other questions?
Yeah, you guys shut them out in the second quarter. That's 2 straight games. Shutting the team out in the second quarter. Let's talk about what you guys have been able to do in the second quarter these past couple games, especially this one. What you guys have been able to do, or is this different from the first, third, and fourth quarters?
There's no magical answer there. You know, I mean, it's. I think too often too much gets made about these. Hey, what call was this, or what was this in-game adjustment, or what they do at halftime, and everything else like that. It's a matter of the kids and the staff being focused and aligned together consistently for play after play after play after play after play after play. Right? And the best teams that are consistently good and not occasionally great have the discipline to prepare one step at a time. They don't cheat any of that process, because if you try and cut corners, you try and cheat it, then there's a hole in your foundation that eventually is going to come through, right? And then when you get to the moment and you get to the game, this game can only be played one play at a time. So hey, we've done a great job the past 2 weeks in the second quarter. Awesome. And that means in the second quarter tonight, we did a really good job playing one play, because if we win on first and second down, then we get in advantageous third down situations where we can be a little bit more multiple. If we don't win on first and second down, we don't play those plays proper, and we're in 3rd and 1, we're in 3rd and 2, well, then it becomes very, very challenging to get to any of your exotic stuff on third downs where you can really go and get after and impact the quarterback, right? So I think probably in that quarter, without, you know, obviously with my eyes seeing it, I like the way that we were playing there, right? I'm willing to bet we played play to play to play, and coached play to play to play, those one plays in those moments at that time better than any section in the game, right? That's really all that we can do. Like within this moment, that's the only thing that I can control, right? And that's how we have to respond. Like, hey, we muff the kick, and the defense has a sudden change. If they're getting a stop, thinking that they're going to get off the field, we muff the kick, we're back out, and we get an unbelievable stop because of an unbelievable response, and because we're trained. All right, so we need to have that level of focus, that level of training in every single snap next week when we go play Buffalo. And the only way that's going to happen is if we show up in our preparation and our process, that intensity, that urgency, and that focus is in every single step of the prep, so you can be trained when that comes. It's the only way it's going to happen, right? That's the only way we can put together a 4-quarter ball game.
And then you mentioned, Cartman, it took him a little bit to get in the game, but once he did, how important is it to get a young guy like that, this exposure and this type of game and this type of environment at this young of an age? How important is it to get him that exposure?
I think anytime that you can get a young man game reps, that's invaluable, right? And it's a testament to him and a tip of the cap to him and how unselfish he was, right? Because he played in 4 games, right? As we're coming down the stretch here, obviously with the red shirt rules, right? If he played in any more, he was going to burn a year of eligibility. And, shoot, he didn't even flinch, right? When I looked at him and just knowing, okay, individually what was best for him, probably not to play, right? And go about it a different way. If he was going to be a selfish individual, but what an unselfish act. Like, there was zero hesitation. Like, hey, this is a one possession game. I need to go right now. This is what the team needs. And there was no hesitation whatsoever so that he could go. And I thought that was incredibly unselfish on his part. And these reps now, he invested and he attacked it the right way. And it's going to bear fruit for him, down the road. So yeah, it's invaluable for all these young guys right now to get these reps because as best you can simulate it, now at least he can feel the way that he has this year. All right, when Coach is talking about more urgency, when he's on these rants and he's on these tangents, right, talking about having urgency and focus and what that means to have a game-like intensity, it's not some fictional fantasy world to him. He's lived it, he's done it, he's played on national TV, and so now on a Tuesday, he's going to go approach his work that way so that he can get better and he can grow at a faster clip and at a faster rate than the guy who hasn't played. And now the really cool thing will be if all these young guys and the guys who have played start pulling other guys along too, and they don't tolerate anything but people's best and what their game urgency is like, even though it's a Tuesday practice and there's no one around. Because that's when we'll get to our best as a team, collectively, as a program, as an organization, as we continue to move forward and build this thing.
Yeah, and then, talk about Walker's performance, specifically that one play where that pass interference call, he was held and made an incredible catch. Just talk about the season he's been having and the development that he's had.
Oh, so you said Walker?
Yeah.
Yeah, again, young man that, ever since Ball State, he hasn't been 100%, and again, has embodied, so what, now what? Right, like, hey, team needs me, I need to go, I'm not at 100%. Like, no one's at 100%, no team's at 100% right now, right? But he realizes and he understands, because of his skill set, what he brings to the table, that his 80% is better than whoever we can put in at 100%. Right, and we talk all the time, that play in particular, where we talk about the PI and the catch, right? We sat in this room at our offensive unit meeting, we talked about, hey, is anyone down in Canton in the NFL Hall of Fame or the College Football Hall of Fame because they got a whole bunch of defensive pass interferences? Like, the answer is no. Like, no one made a gold bust or anything because they got a lot of defensive pass interferences, right? You get the defensive pass interference and you get the catch. Like, that's how you get recognized because you're one of the best. And he's one of the best players in this league, and very excited about his future, very excited for the preparation of the work. Like, he's a guy that understands work works. He shows up and he works each and every single day. So here's a shocker. Because he works really, really hard, we want to talk about him because he's got really, really good production. But there's so much that goes unseen that then on game day, when everyone else gets to see him, you know what Tez does? He approaches game day like a Tuesday. You come watch him Tuesday one-on-ones, he wins a lot of one-on-ones. And you see him on game day, he wins a lot of one-on-ones. They're not real smart. The guys who work really, really hard, that want to hone their craft and truly believe, don't just believe that this is Coach Lou, coach speak, right? That practice repetition becomes game reality. Good things happen though for those guys. It's really pretty cool. It's cool to see. And it's great growth through him that is going to spread because of it. It's really cool.
And then one last question for me. You forced them to go 5 for 16 on third down. Let's talk about what you guys were able to do on third down against a good offense like that.
Yeah, we were able to rally and get them down short. 3 of 5 on fourth down, so really generate 2 turnovers there. But as good as those individual numbers are on third down and on fourth down in those critical situations, we didn't do enough. We didn't get off the field enough in time to manage to do enough so that we could score one more point than them at the end of the day and win.
Talk about how that growth that you've mentioned a couple times gives you confidence, not just for Buffalo next week, but for the guys that are coming back next season. And to see more growth, does that give you confidence going into next year with some of those guys that are coming back, like Coop, like Schlee? Obviously, he's got a full season starting under his belt now. What does that give you moving forward?
Well, to me, when you talk about confidence, right, confidence comes from constant repetition of doing something at an acceptable or above standard level, right? If I can consistently and constantly execute a task, a job, or responsibility that I've been entrusted to have for myself, my family, for the organization, consistently over time, to me, those consistent reps carry conviction and leads to confidence. The only way that you can do that is by putting in real work. And the only person who truly knows if you're putting in real work is you. Right, when you guys write these stories, right, and you put together this recap, all right, of Coach Lou's rants tonight because he's upset that he let down his seniors and needs to get some things off his heart here, right? Like, only you guys are going to know when you sit at your keyboards if it's the best that you could do. That's it, right? And at the end of the day, everything that we do, whether it's a player in the locker room, a coach in the locker room, myself, our staff, like, did you do your best? Did you honestly do the best of your ability and put forth real work? Because if you did real work, constantly, consistently, over time, with conviction, that's where true confidence comes from. A lot of guys can have a lot of fake bravado and do a lot of different things, but then when the rubber meets the road, their character is revealed. And that confidence is just fake bravado. If you've got true confidence, that comes from real work. And to me, you can tell. You can tell, right? So the guys that you mentioned, again, come see how they run this summer. Like, all you guys come on, summer conditioning, come check it out. Like, you guys can see the way that our guys work, and you'll be able to see, all right, who's really working. And you guys will be able to go, oh, Coop's working. Yeah. And then guess what? Coop's going to run for over 1,200 yards come season time. This group works. And work works. Again, let's not make it harder than it has to be. Like, you know, and again, like that, when those guys become vocal and encourage and show because they carry their water the right way, then they're going to bring other guys along. And then again, that growth within the organization will be the standard. Right? And if you're not a guy that wants to work that way, hey, this is too hard, that's right. Okay, hey, this is too much for you? Okay, cool. Then you don't want to be a champion. All good. That's fine. We'll help you. Not a problem. All good. But there's going to be so many guys in that locker room working at an elite level, at championship level, because of the guys that you just mentioned, and other guys that are continuing to grow and develop, right? That you're either going to come up and commit to that, or you're going to get going. And that's all right. But those that will stay will continue to grow. And they'll not only be elite here in their time here, but then they're going to be elite husbands, they're going to be elite fathers, they're going to be elite community members, because they're willing to do real work consistently over time and just keep showing up and keep being consistently good, not occasionally great. It's going to be really, really cool to get those phone calls many, many years from now about all the great things that they're doing, or to follow their stories when they're CEOs, right? When they're leading their own companies, when they're principals, when they're, hey, they got their own teams. Hey, this old guy, back in the day, you guys don't know him. That was the tall guy over there who just kind of comes around. Like, hey, he taught me this. That's going to be cool to see. It's going to be really cool to see.
Tom, any last thoughts?
Coach, you know, their starter, Smith, they really have two starters at quarterbacks because Paul's got a lot of reps this year.
Yep.
He goes down third play of the game. Does the defensive game plan change at all with Powell? He's not as much of a runner as Smith was. Is that something that you think about, or you just say we're going to stay the course?
No, I mean, so we had some ideas, right, for both of them, and we were able to, what we thought going into it was a good plan for both of them. Again, obviously we didn't do enough to affect Powell, right, in his throwing ability, knowing that he was a better thrower, you know, than Tom's Zach that went down, right? So, you know, again, got to be better there so that we can impact Powell more and, you know, negate his strengths and have him play a little bit more left-handed than we forced him to do.
You know, Devin started against Amber. He started a little bit slow. It seemed like he threw a little stop route to Dante on the far sideline, and that was like the switch that he kind of took off from that point in the game. And it was almost ironic tonight that Eastern was not going to make Devin beat him at some point because they were stacking the box and they weren't going to let Tez get going. Sure. And he threw a little stop route to Devontae on the far sideline. Did you feel like that was it? Okay, now we got our breath under us, now we got our feet under us. He's throwing a nice little stop route where now he can get it going offensively. Because up to that, I think it was 0 for 5, 0 for 6 getting going.
Yeah, I think at one point in time, as you mentioned, right, he was 0 for 5, right? And I think anytime, you know, it's kind of like a jump shooter. Like, you need to see the ball go in the hoop, right? So you need to feel a completion, right? Especially on a windy night like that, kind of just managing, you know, the elements and knowing, okay, hey, as we're working away from the scoreboard, my ball's going to travel a little bit, right? It's going to carry on me as we flip it around and went the other way. The ball's going to impact a different way, right? And just kind of when he got thrusted into it, right, it's one thing to be all warmed up pregame and then to be standing there in these elements, right? Like just getting the core body temperature rolling and going so that he can feel good about, you know, playing pitch and catch. But yeah, you're spot on, right? They were going to load the box, they're going to play heavy cover one, they're going to force him to consistently beat them, and absolutely we didn't do that at a good enough level, and we got lots of work on, you know, in that QB room, and I'm excited to roll my sleeves up and go to work with them.
Good stuff, Coach. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any last thoughts for Coach? All right, Coach, thank you much. We'll see you Monday.
Cool, awesome. Thanks, guys. Cool flashes.